This is the sweet sound of success with Sue Wilhite, Profit Attraction Master. Tracie Root said goodbye to corporate America and found her new calling after a personal family tragedy. She shifted to helping others at a deeper level while making more time for her own fulfillment, adventure, and joy. Now, Tracie supports women to help them move from stuck to shining bright so they can be bolder and brighter and thrive. Welcome, Tracie. I'm so glad you got to be on my show.
Hi, Sue. I'm super excited to be here too. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, of course, I had to have you because we are both co-authors of this wonderful book that's coming out soon. And depends on when people view this, it might be out by then, but it's coming out in March. And so we're February. Sorry, it's something else for me that's coming out in March. In February, and we're really excited about it. And this is good stuff. So,
absolutely.
And you've got great stuff, Tracie. I've got to say, this is such an honor to have you on the show.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much.
So for those viewers who this is their first time watching The Sweet Sound of Success, what we do here is I structure the conversation as the hero's journey from Joseph Campbell. And so what we're going to talk about is Tracie's ordinary beginning that I always laugh about. Nobody has an ordinary beginning. Her call to action, the big hairy monsters that she got to play with along the journey, and most importantly, her allies, mentors, and guides, because nobody does this by themselves. I don't care what the media tries to tell you. And how it's called the journey home, how people react in her immediate circle to her being a thriving entrepreneur and going out and forging her own path. So, Tracie, what was your ordinary beginning?
Well, I have to say that I love that you use the hero's journey in modeling these interviews because I'm a big Marvel movie fan, Star Wars fan, like all of those, Pixar, they all use the hero's journey. And so it's for all of us, it's a very familiar arc when it's outside of us, but we don't often see what that looks like for us. So for me, my ordinary beginning was I'm a white girl who grew up in California. Like I grew up in Silicon Valley, and that's not particularly ordinary if you look at the whole country, but there wasn't anything extraordinary individually, right? I'm a child of divorce, pretty common. My parents split, I think, when I was in 4th grade. And we moved a bunch of times before then. So I was always kind of the new kid in school for a lot of years. And that ended up causing me to be the person who needed to make friends on a regular basis and needed to figure out how to fit in order to do that. So that's a pretty common childhood story. And it also is very formative of how we grow up as adults. So my path that was put before me from a young age was do good in school, go to college, get good grades, get a good job, climb the corporate ladder, tap on the ceiling, all of those things. And that's exactly what I did. I grew up here in Cupertino, home of Apple, which everyone on the planet knows. And I went to San Jose State. I got a job in my field or a related field. And for 17 years, I worked in corporate Silicon Valley. My story shifted after that, right? So my story started to change direction when I got married. We were having our first child. My husband was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh.
So for the next 4 years, he was fighting his battle and I was working full time, raising a baby, having another baby, figuring out how to keep him alive, keep my husband alive while working full time, learning how to be a mom. and really kind of seeing the writing on the wall that he was never really going to get better, even though we were hoping it would last a really long time.
Right.
We never really were told that. So after about 4 years, everything kind of crumbled. And that's when the typical upbringing and the big challenges started to show up. Everything was kind of sunshine and roses before then. We were an amazing couple, and the kids are still amazing. But he was gone, and I had to start looking at things a little bit differently.
Right. Wow. Wow. Yeah. The beginning could have been a montage from a lot of people's lives.
Absolutely. Like I said, there was nothing, I mean, I was smart, pretty, white. I had a lot of privilege, right? So I get that.
Right.
But at the same time, there's a lot of people that are in that situation, right? My remarkableness really starts with my husband passing away.
Right. Right. Bless your heart. That's got to be agonizing to experience, both from a wife's point of view and a mother's point of view. You've got kids.
Right. Well, the kids were 1.5 and 4 when he passed away. And that was why I started looking at how I could make things different in my life, right? Because I was the only parent they had. I didn't have any family nearby. I had a couple of friends. I had a lot of work friends because I was friendly, but those are work friends, not like, lifelong friends. My family lived across the country. And to get through, I had to go through kind of the initial grieving process and kind of come out of that fog of not really just survival mode, right?
Yeah.
Once I came out of that survival mode, I started to look at myself and my kids and our situation and just say, right now this is not fun. We're not enjoying our days on a regular basis, and I'm exhausted, and I don't have any real close friendships to share this with. I don't have any family for support. So I needed to figure out how to do something new. And I looked and started with what I could see in the mirror every day, which was the fact that I was on the verge of being obese. I was very heavy. I had, like I said, no energy, super exhausted all the time, and no energy to hang out with my kids and really be the mom that I wanted to be.
Right.
So after looking in the mirror and deciding that I was going to start with a little bit of self-care, like figure out how to pay attention to me once and for all, I lost 55 pounds that year.
Nice.
And I did that through a program that offers structured nutrition, coaching, accountability, support, education on habit management and replacement, things like that. And it changed my kind of daily outlook so greatly that everyone started noticing that things were different in my life. Not only that I needed a new wardrobe because none of my clothes fit anymore, but that I was happier and more energetic and more me again, finally.
It just shows up.
It does. I have clients who tell me it shows up within a week. So clearly they haven't really lost enough visually for people to know why, other than they're finally taking care of themselves.
Yes.
And paying attention to the things that maybe have gotten out of control in one direction, and they're starting to bring things back in line with something that's good for them.
Yes. Yes. And there is a visible shift when that happens. And just showing up as someone who said, you know what, I'm going to put me first. It doesn't mean that I am being selfish or ignoring anybody else. It's just that I'm going to fill my cup first so that I can give to you.
Right. And, the meme, right? The phrase of put your oxygen mask on first. Like I always believed that, but who had the time? Right? Like you know it, but you can't do it. Right. And when you finally get to the point where it's like, you know what, I'm going to do that. Because I did start, I lost my weight through this program that I coach, but I actually started the self-care piece with like where a lot of people start, I'm going to work out. Of course, it didn't result in any real health changes, but I was enjoying the time for myself. And that is where I started. I started going to bar classes. This was back in 2011. And there was a place right down the street from me, and I would hire the babysitter to come and watch my kids so I could go to bar class. The class was an hour, so I'd hire them for like 2 hours. And so between hiring the babysitter, paying for the classes, 3 times a week, I was spending like $75 a week to go to these classes, which I enjoyed, but I wasn't getting any real results from,
Right.
other than the realization that I could spend some time on myself and it would make me a better mom. Right. So that was like that realization. And then I shifted to actually getting physical results and better, blood work results and all that kind of stuff. And that's, how we went on in 2012 when I lost that weight.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So was your confrontation with yourself one of your big hairy monsters?
I think dealing with Paul's passing was certainly the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I really confronted myself as much as I had that realization, right? It wasn't really a fight. It was more of a aha.
Yeah, that was why I paused before.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
Like, what verb goes in there?
Well, and there were definitely other things in my personal development that I would say were more monsters to tackle. Things like being willing to accept help. And I know that kind of moves on to the supporters and guides that you come across along the way. But the ability to accept the help of those people was definitely a challenge. I have a story that I tell about a gal at my church who wanted to help me out, and I basically shut her down. And I still remember it to this day, 17 years ago. Wait, I don't know, however long ago it was, long time ago. And I still remember it because it was, in my head now, of course, I'm just like, well, that was like, why didn't I let her help me? Right. It would have been helpful to me and she would have felt so great about helping me. Right. And that's the whole point of giving and receiving help, is that both people get a benefit, right? The helper and the person who's helped all receive benefit. And as a coach, when I finally realized that, then I could really move forward with helping people, because I feel like until I understood the real value of someone helping me, I couldn't really help others because it was still about me instead of about them. Right. So it was kind of a really cool realization.
Right. I'll have to put in the show notes somewhere a link to the YouTube video of the Anison commercial that was out in the 50s with the "Mother, I can do it myself." My mother said that I quoted quite a bit when I was a child.
Well, and that's part of our high achieving women camaraderie nature, right? Is that we're all very self-sufficient. That's definitely how I was growing up, and kind of, like I said, get good grades, do a good job, get a good job,
all of that,
all that stuff. Yes. Right? That's all because we are self-sufficient, high achieving, highly capable people.
Right. And then the coda to that needs to be who can also accept help and guidance.
Well, because as humans, we're not designed to be solo. We are tribal in nature, right? That is the way we are created in the world. Right. And, anyone who thinks that we're designed to be solo ends up being like the Unabomber, right? That's like
a little detached.
Exactly. A little maybe out of touch with how they're relating to other people, which is not to say that you have to be an extrovert like me, right? But to understand that, there's something to relationships. And that's kind of what's come out of coaching for me, is a real love for community and for the understanding of how important community is, and how, if we can stay connected to other people, this year's been the model example of it, because even though we can't physically be together, we have to stay connected or we're gonna fall apart. Like that's, mentally, emotionally, we're physically, like in all the ways we're designed to be connected. And if Zoom's what we got, then that's what we got.
Exactly. Speaking of that, so
Yeah.
who were some of your allies, mentors, guides?
Yeah. Well,
Were
so
along your path?
my now husband, of course, would be one. I am remarried. We've been married a little over 7 years now. And he and I have actually been friends since I was 17. So he was a friend all the way along. He actually helped me process when my husband passed. And I remember him going, there's a lot of that time that's a blur, but I remember him going with me to the funeral home and dealing with some of that stuff. So, he was my best friend for decades before we ever shifted our relationship to a different level. Clearly my family, my parents, who unfortunately live in Florida, but they're so supportive. My dad was in semiconductor sales here in the Valley, super highly accomplished, knew a million people. And what I get from that is I've always gotten my belief that I can do anything from him and my positivity. I realized here at a later age that he's always like positive about stuff. Like, I mean, he's sarcastic and old guy too, but he's also like, hey, that's great. Like, you can totally do that. I believe in you,
Nice.
And I believe that people can do things, right? He loves the idea that people can accomplish, the unknown. So that's always been huge. Of course, I have my health coach who helped me lose my initial weight and shift my mindset and start to learn these new habits that I've carried with me for the last 8 years. And other coaches along the way. Katarina Rando is my business coach. And for the last couple of years, keep telling everyone, like, she's mine. I don't know if she ever talks to anybody else, but she is my like heart and soul coach. And she has helped me create everything I've done in the last couple of years, and especially this year in kind of all of this craziness, the model that she gave to all of us and the what's the word? I want to say freedom, but freedom's not the word. The space that she kind of held for us to become whatever we're going to become, even in this crazy time, is one of the most valuable gifts I've ever received, because I'm super proud of everything I've been able to do. And I can't wait to see what's to come. There's just so much more. I never would have been a part of the book had she and I not been talking about, at some point, I'm like, what? Ariel's doing this book. Maybe now's the time.
Maybe now.
And I called her and I started, right? So, and a couple of years ago, it wasn't the time. So it's that evolution that, someone like she came, that we connected years ago, and she's walked alongside me all along on this journey for sure.
Nice. Yeah. So tell me about.
I feel like that was an Oscar speech, right? I had to thank my parents. I had to thank my husband.
That's what we need. We need more Oscar speeches, and we need them before the Oscar comes out.
That's right. Celebrate beforehand.
Celebrate beforehand. And really, there's I forget what they call it. It's not the Whispering Wall. That's a different thing altogether. But there's a website that somebody started where you can literally post your deepest, darkest thoughts completely anonymously. They
post secret.
IPs, they erase everything, and you could just get it off your chest, and you could go and read this stuff. I mean, they post it. It's a website. It's posted.
I think is it Post Secret?
Maybe that's it. Yeah. And what I want to do is start something that's like post a celebration.
Yeah, the positive stuff.
Positive stuff. I mean, we need to get those deeper, darker things out. That I totally get it. If therapy isn't available, get it out somehow. Don't keep it in. But we need to celebrate. We need to acknowledge people. We need to acknowledge help. We need to acknowledge celebration. Facebook just isn't doing it quite the way that we want it to do, right?
Well, yeah. And that's, I think the thing about Facebook is it's like a microcosm of the world, right? On steroids. Right. Everyone it's like being drunk. You are more yourself on Facebook, right? So if you're kind and generous, you show up like the most kind, generous person. And if you're kind of angry and small, then you're going to show up kind of angry and small.
Right.
And those two things coexisting on one scroll make them even that much more obvious that they're the two ends of the spectrum, right? It's craziness.
It certainly is.
I love that we get to curate who we see, though, because all those angry and small people are becoming fewer and fewer as I scroll by, because I don't need to surround myself with them. I get to decide who I surround myself with, and that's not my priority.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So you've mentioned the supporters. You've mentioned that your husband is a big supporter of you, and it sounds like your parents support you in some way. Have there been any other reactions to you breaking out and being an entrepreneur and going out there and being successful and helping women thrive?
It's a really good question. And I have to say that I haven't really had a lot of negative response. And part of that probably is that I don't notice it. Because I'm sure it's there. And I'm sure that there's people who are just like, whatever, like, you know, who are you to, blah, blah, blah. Right. But I really don't pay attention to them. And there probably was more in the beginning. But after coaching for 8.5 years, you know, in those first couple of years, sure, I had lots of, are you really qualified to do what you're doing? Or do you really know what's the best, you know, if I'm trying to help someone else, like, do you really know what's the best way? In the health coaching world, I had a lot of time where I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a trainer. I'm not all these certified things that other people are. Who am I to be coaching people on their health? But that's, you know, I got the opportunity to learn that finally, after, you know, probably a couple of years, that it takes all kinds, right? We can't all know everything. And, you know, because I have kind of an outgoing, sparkly personality, I don't think there were a lot of people who really would be like willing to look me in the face and say that kind of thing to my face, because I'm a little, because it's kind of a lot to confront someone who's kind of the opposite of confrontation, right?
Right.
So, so I'm very thankful, actually, because I don't do confrontation very well, but I do positivity and flipping stories really well. And so anything that would come to me that would be negative, I'd be like, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but that's not true for me. You know, and in the old days, it was a lot more like that, right? Sarcastic and like, you're wrong and I'm right. And let's just end that. And now it's much more of an interesting conversation. Like, I wonder why they come to me that way, why they might think that of me. What is it about me that's coming off that way? What is it about them that's causing them to see me that way? It's more of a trying to understand people place than a people who aren't supporting you and like feeling that. So I don't really feel it.
Great.
At the
That's
same,
a great lesson.
Well, it is. And that's the thing. And that's really like this journey this is not a health journey. This is not like learning how to have a business. This is personal development.
Yes.
Start to never ending, right?
Right. The onion never gets peeled.
Yeah. Yeah. Strange. Someone should do a video of that, of the peeling the onion, and the onion just never changes.
It just doesn't.
Because it's so true. And I think that that's the gift, is knowing that the journey never does end, that there's always the next chapter, right? There's always the next, you know, leg of the journey, the next part of the story. And, you know, the world is round. Like, you just keep going around and around. And sometimes you're on a boat and sometimes you're in a car and maybe you're in a plane.
Exactly.
But you can just keep going.
Yes.
So, you know, you're going to fall off the edge anytime soon.
Right. Well, I always go back to the book Illusions by Richard Bach. And in it, it says, how do you know you're done with your personal development? And the answer is, if you're still on the planet, you're not.
Right. Yeah. How do you know you're done? You're dead.
You're dead. That's
and then who knows what happens after that.
Right. So. Right. So it's like, no, don't wish you're done.
Right. Yeah.
Always have something to be playing with and looking at and opening up the box and
And that's the
seeing.
big trick when when you start with health coaching, you think that you're going to reach a goal and that you're going to get there. And there's never any there, which is a hard lesson to learn if you're in it for the diet.
Right.
But it's the lesson to learn so that you can be in it for the life.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And I'm really grateful that I started in that kind of niche, in that category, not only for my own personal health and for the people I've been able to help, but the fact that I got to learn that while I thought I was just going on a diet. Like there's that whole shift of this is really personal development. And now it's personal and professional development ongoing. And that's really where I focus my coaching now, right? I'll still help people with their health for sure, but it's life and it's business and it's relationships and it's all the things that that's life. It's all the things.
Yes. Yes. So I've got a surprise question for you.
Okay. I'm good with that.
And you may have just answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
So what's your favorite part about what it is that you do?
My favorite part.
Yeah. What's the thing that, if you had a client who, allowed you to do something in particular or asked a particular question or, some part of your practice,
right?
What's the thing that lights you up the most?
I think that, what's been happening this year. So since I started as a health coach, but I moved into coaching people life and business, but I also opened an event space in downtown Santa Cruz a little over a year ago in October of 2019. And it's called Gather. And we were open for 5 months and then we had to close the doors. Right. And I had to figure out, I had a lot of thoughts around that. Okay, if we can't have people in the room, now what am I going to do? I got this room. And I've been working so hard for the last 6, 9, 12 months to create this thing, this business. What do I do next? And I realized that a couple of things. One was that all of the work that I had done in building the brand and building the visibility and the recognition and all of that stuff, that has momentum. We were about to kind of get in the black and all of these things for the space, and we had to close the doors. So what am I going to do with all this momentum? So I took the momentum and the things that we had learned, and I did whatever I could to try to keep that ball rolling. I realized that my goal previously was to get people in the room so they could stand there in the room and kind of go, oh, this is cool. Oh, you know what? We should have this meeting here. And, oh, I'd like to teach this workshop, my class. Do you have this kind of table? Yes, I do. Okay. We can have these people here, and do these things, and you've got a projector and all the things, right? So they'd stand there in the room and imagine what's possible with the space and what's possible that they could then bring to their community, to their people, to their clients, to their business, company. Sorry, I have a hair on my sweater that is tickling me. And so I realized when we had to close the doors that my goal still had to be, I needed to get them in the virtual room, which became being on Zoom, right? And so that they could, or being online, and so they could stand there and go, I wonder what's possible.
Right.
What can I do online now that we're online, right? The world is not over. The world is not shut down.
Right.
Just physical is shut down. So what can we do online? And imagine what's possible. What can I do to bring things to my people? What kind of meetings can we have? And so when people rent the room, we promote for them. We put things in our newsletter and we, send it out to our list, and we have a website, and we will do advertisements for certain things and all that. What can I do online? The same thing.
Right.
So in person, they rent the room. How do I make an income not renting the room? And we did it with a membership.
Nice.
So we created the Gather community members, where we have the creators and the contributors, a couple different categories, people who are doing a lot of activity and some activity, and we promote and celebrate and give them visibility and attention. And so that was, one of the huge gifts of this season for us. And the thing that really lights me up, back to your question, I didn't forget, Amazing. The thing that really lights me up is to see people who thought that they were alone in trying to figure things out, have them figure out that they're not alone, that they have support, that the people that are out there in their world really care and want to help them, and that they're ready to be brave about talking about that, right? That they're willing to stand up and be truthful about what matters to them and own their dreams and own their plans and own their goals and move forward with them. And even if they don't know what that's gonna look like, to start that journey, right? So as a coach, that's the trick, right? To get people to start the journey and stay on it with you. Same thing happened with Gather. It really ended up being a similar vibe. And the community that we built around that model is so wonderful. We had an event last week where we had 12 speakers.
Wow.
We had 100 registrants. We had 40, 50 people in the room at any given time. It was fabulous. And we never done it before.
Nice.
But it was so fabulous and so affirming to everything that we've been building this year, and affirming to the model of this is how we can all continue to move forward without knowing what the future holds for in person.
Right.
Because we don't get to know that. We just have to wait.
We get to figure it out, or we get to create it.
Well, we don't get to know. What I mean is we don't get to know what's going to happen as far as in person,
True.
right?
True.
We are told what's okay and what's not okay in most of those cases. So we can still create in spite of that lack of knowing.
Yes.
In a way that serves us and that serves our clients and that serves our community, maybe even better than before.
Right. Because we could reach more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our list, our community is not only here in Santa Cruz, and that's a big one. That was a big one, actually, Sue, was, yes. My room is a room here in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
If you lived in Idaho, you probably weren't coming.
Exactly.
But my creators and my contributors who are having events and workshops and speaking and all these things, they're traveling all over the country.
Exactly.
At the speed of light.
Yes.
Literally. Speed of sound, maybe. Is it light or sound when you're online?
Light.
I have no idea.
Light.
Anyway.
Well, it's the speed of internet at any rate.
Right. Speed of internet. Speed of Zoom. Where they're Zooming, right?
Right.
So, and that's been a huge gift, because a lot of the people would have otherwise said, I really only do good things in person. So I'll just wait. Right. Well, come April, we knew there was no waiting to be had either. And if you don't act like in any other journey, if you don't act, you're going to fall behind, you're going to fall in a hole.
Yep.
Right. You have to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge gift.
So Tracie, how can our viewers get a hold of you? What are your links?
Yeah, I am all over. I'm everywhere. Except for Twitter. I don't really do Twitter.
Okay.
But Facebook is probably my main social media platform to find me as a person, to find Gather in Santa Cruz, to find Tracie Root Coaching, all of those things are groups. We've got a great group that's the Gather community with Tracie Root. I've got another group that's more of my coaching, that's personal leadership with Tracie Root. And so those are all social media wise, but internet and website wise, I've got my coaching website, but really my bigger goal for an audience like this is probably to focus on Gather, because it's where we can really bring people together in community. And that is something that can serve everyone regardless of whether they're ready for a coaching experience with me or not. So the Gather website, we've got newsletters that come out every other week. One went out today, actually. So that's been really fun. We have interviews, we have, lots of events and stuff going on, a little tidbit maybe from me at the beginning or an update of what's going on. But yeah, we're in all the places.
Wonderful. All right. So we will have that available both in the show notes, and there should be something that's showing up below me here, and in the end notes of this video. So Tracie, I want to thank you again for being on my show. This has been great. Your journey has been really, literally awesome. And I'm not just saying that in the
Thank you.
culturally approved way. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, all of my viewers on the sweet sound of success.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thanks. What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action Coaching Program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action Coaching Program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.